Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Jeff Bullas Show. Today I have with me Kordel K France. Now, Kordel is a founder and CTO at Theta Diagnostics. What do they do? Well, we're going to find out. It's actually a fascinating area that Kordel is in. Kordel is the founder and lead engineer of a pioneering machine sensing startup, Theta Diagnostics. For the better part of the last decade, he has been working with his incredible team to build a new type of nanotechnology sensor and multimodal AI platform that enables machines' sense of smell. His driving missions gives machines the sense of hypersensitive smell through machine olfaction and accelerate a new paradigm in robotics and AI. Kordel is a technologist, inventor, and multidisciplinary engineer. His reward function is maximized by teaching machines to solve complex problems through AI. And by the way, guys, listening in and watching, is that there are many different types of AI, and we're going to talk about that because Kordel's a little bit worried that everyone thinks it's just Chat GPT, and Kordel will actually update us on that. So while most of his recent works contained in the bootstrapping of Theta and its acquirers, he has also had the privilege of working with and learning from incredible engineers at some of the world's best companies in solving challenging technology problems. Though his focus has been on the engineering of sensor systems and multimodal AI, he has been doing deep manufacturing and hardware development experience that enables him as a comprehensive product developer and technical leader. His experience spans computer vision, autopilot development, aircraft design and simulation, natural language processing, swarm intelligence, and optics. So Kordel, welcome to the show. I'm really pleased to have you here, and we're going to have a chat about what are different types of AI, how you think where AI is going. We're going to have a lot of fun chat about that. So, Kordel, what got you into AI? Did you watch the Jetsons? Did you watch movies? Did mum and dad engineers? How did this all start? What was this call to the adventure of artificial intelligence research? Because you're currently also in the middle of doing a PhD in AI as well, aren't you?
Yeah, that's correct. And yeah, just to preface, thank you for having me on the show, and thank you to your listeners as well. But yeah, so my original genesis for getting into AI actually started when I was a toddler. I grew up on a farm, and my father was a big proponent of using new technologies to increase efficiency and to increase yield on the farm. And he brought home some self-driving software package for one of these tractors one day, and retrofitted it to the tractor to allow it to drive itself. And as a child, I'm watching this machine drive itself without any controls, without any interaction, and it was something straight out of a sci-fi movie for me, something like I would imagine come out of Star Wars. And so it was a really defining moment, really surreal for me as a toddler. And as I grew older, I asked my father, I said, how do I work on this? How do I contribute to this? I want to be able to like contribute to this field. And he said, well, you got to be good at math. You got to be good at robotics. You got to go into sensors and software development, et cetera. And so that was kind of the accelerant for my work and my North Star, if you will, for the rest of my life and my life's work in artificial intelligence. So believe it or not, it actually started with agriculture.
Right. Okay. And yeah, we've got some big farms here in Australia, and we do there's a lot of machinery and development going on, and like cropping is done very accurately now, isn't it, with GPS, for example. So and then you've got drones checking things out to make sure the crop is ready, or there's all sorts of things are going on. And I've got a really good mate of mine who actually runs a 7,000 acre sheep farm, and he realized that he wasn't growing sheep. What he really needed to do is be a grass grower, because that's what feeds the sheep. So he had to get very good at optimizing grass growth, because so he created what 200, I think created about 200 paddocks, small size. They could have access to water in the corner, and they grazed every corner of a small paddock rather than eating the corner of a large paddock. So the tech in
Mm.
agriculture is actually really quite fascinating. So yeah, it's getting better, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting because there's a lot of room for innovation within agriculture, but B, it's always been funny to me because self-driving technology kind of was more proliferate in agriculture before it became more of a consumer tech, automobile industry type thing. Granted, self-driving in a field with a tractor is a much simpler problem than self-driving on a highway, but the technology was kind of there and was, I guess, it was a little more familiar in agriculture before it became mainstream on, Tesla and some of these other electric or autonomous vehicle companies that we see today. But yeah, there's a lot of interesting things going on in ag, not only with AI, but just technology evolution in general.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, as we were talking before, I've been involved in technology industry since the mid-80s when the personal computer started to become, um, you know, much bigger part of, well, it actually took over from mainframes. Then it took over from the mini computers, which weren't that mini, and then the personal computer, which was good, but then it got networked and then it got better, and then the internet got connected to that and that got better. So we're in the middle of watching the world become a global network, aren't we, really? And that has so much data that AI helps us make sense of it. So let me asking this question then. So you're inspired by this self-driving tractor, and they're really good because they can't kill, well, they can kill people, but they'll only kill a sheep or destroy a fence if they actually go a little bit mad, don't they? But what was
They're in a
next?
playground, sandbox environment.
That's right. Yeah, fences, sensors. So your dad said you need to be good at physics and maths, and robotics and so on. So is that what you started to focus on when you got to high school? What were the next steps?
Yeah, so I was always really good at math and always had a passion for it, and so I continued that path throughout high school and college, and I went into applied mathematics because theoretical mathematics just wasn't quite it didn't have the real world applicability that I wanted. But physics and applied math seemed to get me the right formula of robotics and material science and um, everything that I needed to basically handle the hardware side of robotics. And then the software side kind of came later. But if you peel AI back and all the layers and all the frameworks that wrap a lot of these artificial intelligence models, at its foundation is really mathematics and statistics.
Right.
And so everything's kind of built on top of that. So if you understand math and statistics and probability pretty well, you can kind of build up from there. And then if you become a decent, software engineer, you can start building AI. And then, the hardware component comes in with merging AI into actual robotics. So I really wanted to kind of have this holistic suite of skills that allowed me to excel in a mechanical engineering field, software engineering field, electrical engineering field, and understand the theory as well as being able to be a practitioner to actually build some of these software or these artificial intelligence and robotic systems. So yeah, math was kind of my North Star to guide me throughout the way. And then I picked up software and everything else down the road.
So you you you're going to high school, you're looking at that, doing good at maths, then you go to uni, and did you study, was there an AI specific degree that you did, or was it just maths, physics, and different buckets of subjects?
Yeah, back then there was no AI courses, or there were no AI courses. There were not even any machine learning courses. So it was just all math and statistics. The closest I got to machine learning was a course called Advanced Time Series. And now it's kind of considered machine learning in some buckets. I guess if you look online, you'll find some courses where Advanced Time Series is now machine learning and all that. But back then it was basically the components of AI but not defined as AI, if you will. And then I took a bunch of programming courses that allowed me to apply those mathematics and statistics principles into real world applications through software. And but yeah, there were no machine learning or AI courses back then. There weren't even like any certificates that I could do to actually get that get that as an achievement or get that on my resume. Whereas now I think they're a little more proliferate within colleges and universities. So it's been interesting to see how the curriculum's changed. Some of the titles of the courses have changed from what I feel are like applied statistics to intro to machine learning or something like that. So it's a lot of the building blocks are still fundamentally machine learning or for our statistics and math, but they just kind of have changed it a little bit in their titles or thesis. But it's been interesting to see how the field's progressed in that regard.
Right. So you mentioned that generative AI and what we see as ChatGPT is really just it's I suppose it's the popular, well-known face of what AI is. What are the other topic or what are the other types of AI that we need to know about?
So yeah, the proliferation of generative AI has really given a lot of folks, given the field more attention, and there's been a lot of business value and just a lot more interest that's entered the field because of the use of generative AI. And this is fantastic because we're getting more research, getting more focus, and there's a lot of attention on large language models. But I do like to remind people that there is a whole other realm of artificial intelligence out there beyond large language models that folks are still studying, folks are still doing a lot of research on, and that we still have the opportunity to capitalize on in a similar manner that we did with large language models, just a couple years ago. One thing that's particularly exciting to me as we move towards the artificial general intelligence realm is the development of human level intelligence and enveloping that with all five senses. So what I mean by that is we have vision, right? Humans can see with their eyes, we can hear, we can taste, we can smell. There's a camp of folks that believe human level intelligence can't be achieved unless all five senses are incorporated into an AI
Right.
model. You
Yep.
might get you might get something very intelligent, but if we're defining human level intelligence as AGI, then you have to have all five senses. Now, uh, so going back to your question, one thing that's interesting to me is trying to develop these senses that aren't necessarily getting a whole lot of attention right now. And machine olfaction or machine smell is one of those that I don't is one of the realms of AI that I don't feel is quite as mature as machine vision or machine audio. So there's a lot of opportunity there, I feel like, to kind of level the playing field with the rest of these sensing modalities to try to bring out this legitimate form of human level intelligence, if you will.
Right. So what would the benefit be to have a machine that has a sense of smell?
So one could argue that if I'm sitting outside a cafe in Paris and I'm eating a baguette, I don't get the same experience by just observing the passersby and hearing the chatter of people speaking French. If I don't have the sense of smell, I'm not smelling the baguette, I'm not smelling what else is being baked in the back of the bakery. Um, I still get an experience, but I do lose an element of that experience, right?
Yep.
So being able to build that into machines is something that's attractive. Now, that's kind of the human psychology portion of it, but there are a lot of other use cases that can be built or integrated with the use of these artificial smell sensors. So, um, I'm one area that I'm particularly focused on with my company at Theta Diagnostics is we're trying to build these sensors to detect different medical conditions over people's breath. Now, this is one application of many, but uh, several, I think it was a few hundred years ago, a physician would actually smell your breath as a proxy of how healthy you were, right? That's kind of gross and not sanitary now, but they would actually smell your breath to see like, okay, there's an indication there of what ailment you might have. People don't do that anymore because it's not super sanitary, but the principle still applies. And there's a lot of research backing the ability to detect the chemicals that are emitted when folks exhale. And so that's one application of these these machine olfaction sensors is that if we can is being able to program them to detect the number of chemicals and the level of chemicals coming out of your breath as you breathe, and using that as a proxy of your well-being, your general human well-being.
Right. Yeah, there's some research being done regarding using dogs to actually, well, detect drugs is one thing, but then also disease. And then there's one lady said she could actually smell dementia because she picked it up first. I think it was a New York Times article I read yesterday, actually. So she actually could smell dementia. So that was, so I didn't dive into the article too much, but so the sense of smell is maybe, like you said, it's almost like an unexplored frontier, isn't it?
It is, yeah. If you look at dogs, right? You mentioned dogs. Canines are very good at, I mean, a large part of their brain is attributed to the sense of smell, much larger part of the brain than humans have. And they can track scents that are kilometers away. Some studies suggest many kilometers away. And they can detect at a resolution of a part per quadrillion, which is extremely small.
Wow.
As a level of comparison, a smoke detector can only detect at a part per thousand or maybe a very, very low part per million resolution. So they're several orders of magnitude, dogs are several orders of magnitude more sensitive than a smoke detector. Now, if we can build that capability into machines, then we can get a lot of the same digital replicability in machines that we can with dogs. So there's a host of applications that can be applied there where dogs can track, they can smell drugs, they can smell explosives. We can build the same functionality into machines if we can replicate their noses, the dog's nose, to a high degree. But there's a lot that we can do in medicine as well because if you followed some of the literature during COVID, they were training dogs to detect COVID by smelling it. And you can do the same thing with the machine olfaction sensors as well. So if you can, being able to really replicate all the use cases that a dog can do is kind of a general proxy for what we can do with machine olfaction sensors, but that's not everything we can do. It's just a good proxy for what we can do.
Yeah. So Theta Diagnostics, you basically trying to add a layer of software on top of machines to actually improve is to any machine that has sensors. Is that correct? Is that part of your overall mission, is trying to build more intelligence into any sensing machine?
Partially. So we actually had to build our own sensors. So I mentioned a moment ago how dogs have a part per quadrillion resolution. Our sensors have a part per trillion resolution, which is a lot more sensitive than other sensors on the market, but we're still not quite as good as dogs. But so we've had to build our own sensors, and with that, we've had to build out a host of other capabilities towards something called multimodal machine learning. So what that means is basically we're pairing our smell sensors with vision sensors and audio sensors so that we can have multiple senses, if you will, while we're doing the machine olfaction detection. So as a frame of reference, when a dog is navigating on a scent, it's primarily using the modality of smell, but it also uses its eyes to avoid obstacles and its ears to have situational awareness about what's going on. So it's using three modalities. We use vision and other sensing modalities to try to get a better idea of the entire environment that we're detecting or that we're smelling. And so that's a large part of what we're building into our device is to not only work with our machine olfaction sensors, but to work with other sensing technologies as well. So we had to actually invent the sensors and build them from scratch, and we're building that to integrate with other technologies.
Right. So where did the inspiration come from to sort of look at the sense of smell? Um, where did Was there an aha moment for you regarding that? Like when you're doing research and going, hang on, smell's being forgotten by the AI community, for example, or I don't know, but where did that inspiration to go, okay, we need to look more closely at doing, and also your PhD is in that area as well, isn't it?
Yes, that's correct.
So where did the inspiration come from for the sense of smell is to be integrated into AI and into machines to complete the picture, if you like, of the modality of AI?
So before Theta was started, I started a small startup called Secret Technologies, and we had built a machine learning platform that specifically enabled on-device learning. So you didn't need to be connected to the cloud. Now, a few years ago, 10 years ago, that was a much more impressive thing than it was now because doing AI models on the edge or on edge devices, which was a much harder thing. And we started looking at the general trend and we started to see that, the success we've had so far might not be the same moving forward. So we might lose our moat, if you will, because machine learning models are getting smaller, but just by definition. So our compression algorithm might not be super attractive in the future, and the amount of compute being put into edge devices is just growing. So we were looking around and trying to figure out, well, what's something that we can work on that's not necessarily getting as much attention as some of these other fields in AI. And since I was in college, I've been always fascinated by a lot of the abilities, a lot of sensing techniques out there that can monitor the environment and break the environment down, the air particles, into its constituent compounds. And we looked around at the technologies, and a lot of them were functional and they worked, but there hadn't been a lot of innovation in the field for several years. And uh, some of the some of the critiques of machine olfaction were that the sensors were very slow, they weren't sensitive enough, and that they couldn't detect multiple compounds at once. And those weren't bound by the laws of physics, right? So it's not that it couldn't be done. It's just that there hadn't been a large amount of innovation in the field. So we try to basically look at that a little bit deeper and build out the hardware and software for it. And we built we always try to make data-driven decisions. So we surmised a bunch of data, and the data actually pointed towards being able to detect a much finer resolution, towards like that part per trillion resolution I was talking about, and being able to detect multiple chemicals simultaneously, which is another critique of existing sensors. So we did a bunch of hardware development, and it was a lot of pain, a lot of trial and error, and eventually we came out with a sensing technique that worked. And from then forward, we were able to kind of carry them on into several different industries. So Seeker eventually started with something completely different, became Theta Diagnostics, but we started by building out the machine learning platform that eventually brought forth the machine olfaction sensors. So it's kind of a chicken and egg problem, but yeah, it's we still even today don't see a whole lot of attention on machine olfaction. There's a lot of attention being developed into machine vision and audio and being able to identify patterns and sounds and images. But it would be great to see some more research in the field to try to move it forward because there's a lot of opportunity there.
Yeah, I suppose the challenge is it's also almost invisible. You can't see smell, you can't hear smell. And look, and for me, I appreciate smell in a different way because I had some real sinus issues, and there's a new uh, sinus spray came out called Demister. I would go for a ride with my mate, and my nose would be running, and it would just, and then on top of that, then my nose would be blocked. So my sense of smell started to disappear, which means that affects your sense of taste.
Yep.
So for me, I felt like I was having part of me removed because of that issue. So for me, when I used this new spray, which happened to be an accidental discovery combining two that were used individually and put them together, and this spray became like this magic drug almost. And now you can buy it over the counter in Australia, but um, suddenly I could taste food again. I could walk down the street and smell flowers or women's perfume, and just adds to the whole dimension of walking the street, going part under right, spring, flowers, the fall, sense smelling the ocean, so these are all adding to our, senses as humans, which actually makes us more human, doesn't it?
Yeah, I fully agree. One, you don't appreciate one sense as much until you lose it, right? And I think that's part of the driving mantra behind human level intelligence is if we really want to develop human level intelligence, we've got to incorporate all those sensing modalities into AI. With large language models, there's a huge amount of attention on the psychology part, I feel like, which is can it think? Can it actually construct a thought? And can it do critical thinking on a problem? But that's really just one fundamental aspect of human level intelligence, right? When you incorporate all these different sensing modalities with vision, smell, audio, taste, etc., to me, that's what really constructs human level of intelligence and a body, right? I mean, if we just have the brain, if we just were floating heads that could have all these senses, but we didn't have a body, right? We lose something as as part of that human level of intelligence. So there's a lot of interesting fields or a lot of interesting work that could be done with humanoid robotics in that regard. But I fully agree with you. Once you lose one sensing modality, you kind of you realize just how important it was.
Yeah, exactly. So, part of going for a bike ride is there's all sorts of senses going on, right? Which is, so I'm talking about a bike that you actually have to push with your legs, right? So, but for me, it's such a sensory experience, and I don't understand people, for me, that just want to sit on a bike inside and just pedal. For me, that is missing actually almost the entire point of feeling like a teenager again and going fast down hills and being on the edge of danger and having that adventure and the sense of smell, speed, everything that makes us human. Now, I have a question rising out of humanoid robotics, for example. So, and there's something quite topical at the moment in the investment community in the AI area, which is Elon Musk said, you need to pay me another $56 billion to keep me interested, so I can lean into AI, because Tesla is much more than a car, and he believes that the car self-driving is going to open up a whole new world of opportunity. On top of that, he's actually developing humanoid robots, and that's where he believes that they will be worth $1 trillion a year. I'd be interested in your view on, we all look at AI and robots and we go, humanoid robots, that's where it is. That's where AI is. And we look at the Jetsons and we look at, Star Wars. What do you think? Is there, I think the opportunity actually lies elsewhere, and humanoid robots are just a sexy front end for something that maybe will never take off, just like, Apple's new, head goggles, right? Provision, whatever they call them. So, which has been a failure, by the way, so far. But maybe they're just a good idea, but 10 years too early. I don't know. So I'm intrigued by what you think about the potential of humanoid robots, and you are building, stuff for robots. And I think you've worked at Toyota, who builds robots for production as well. So
Right.
I've been interested in your thoughts on the humanoid robot potential that is sort of there. And it's the big, holy grail for AI, for Tesla maybe, and maybe Elon Musk. I'm interested in your thoughts.
Sure. So there's several different hats I can wear to kind of approach this answer, and some of them are conflicting, but from one perspective, so a few years ago, I used to think that we needed to kind of adapt the world to robotics in order to prepare for them. So what I mean by that is we needed to put certain markings on the road for self-driving cars, and we needed to make it so that there were no steps for home robots, so that they could roll up they could roll up the ramp, or they weren't going to be able to use stairs, so we'd have to build a way for them to get up the stairs. And I think that was the wrong method of thinking, because if we're going to truly realize robotics, I think we're going to have to basically make robots adapt to the world instead of the other way around.
Yep.
So now having humanoid robotics is effectively exercising that mantra, because the world is designed for humans. Effectively, everything we do or everything we interact with is literally designed for us, our species. So by building artificial intelligence that can embody humans, we enable the entire world for robotics. So I think it's necessary to some degree that we build humanoid robotics and really enable them so that we can have the full effect of artificial intelligence and the robotics industry in general. But I don't think that that's entirely. I don't think that's entirely conclusive. I think that's one angle of thought that I address it with. Um, the other thing that's been interesting to observe is the adoption of people to AI, because as AI is moving forward, you see this growing fork of thought where folks are very appreciative and they say bring on the robots, and others are very against it and they think Terminator is about to rise up tomorrow. And that division seems to be getting bigger and bigger. And so I'm curious on how robotics companies are going to harmonize that, right? Because uh, Tesla was very much appreciated for its electric cars and how much they did for the environment and everything. And people have different thoughts on that. But as they start building out AGI, right, their shareholders and their appeal is going to start to change. And I mean, Elon Musk has said several times that he wants to contribute to AGI and that Tesla is one of the closest companies to building it. So you're kind of changing the company's direction a bit, and I don't know what to think about that yet. I think he'll be successful no matter what he does, but the public perception of it might change. Um, so yeah, what are your thoughts on it, to be honest?
Uh, I think it's going to be a lot like a self-driving car. It's been a promise for about 2 decades, and we still haven't cracked that nut, have we? Um,
No.
and I think, do we need a humanoid robot? So for me, I think it's maybe a good idea, but leaning into the research behind it produces other what we call almost side effects that actually produces other opportunities, I think. And so for me, I think he's selling a dream and a vision to the shareholders. I think the reality is maybe 2 or 3 decades away. Maybe the singularity, as Ray Kurzweil talked about, is 2050. Maybe that's the time frame. Um, Self-driving car, I reckon that is simple compared to a humanoid robot. At any rate, that's
Right.
that's my take on it. Look, we've all had great ideas, but it's sometimes that idea is, a decade or two early. Um, I read an article recently that the second movers are the ones that make the money, and you only have to look at Apple versus Nokia to realize that's true. So,
Right.
but anyway, I am fascinated by what the future holds. I remember watching the Jetsons, cartoon series on TV when I was a kid growing up. So for me, I'm fascinated. Um, I think Elon Musk is a great salesperson and can sell the dream. And I think we do need those people in the world to sell dreams, to bring everyone forward and to evolve and grow. Because, shit, it's a lot of fun at the moment, isn't what's happening in the world. It's both good and bad, but there's a paradox of any invention that's good and bad, like, gunpowder, nuclear energy. The list goes on and on. Social media, it connects us, but it also disconnects us. And so, yeah, any technology is going to be used for good or evil. But I think he sold a good story to the shareholders, and he sold the fact that he's going to increase that's going to be $1 trillion company within a short time frame. But I think we're talking a decade or two out at least. That's my guess.
Yeah, yeah, it's still a ways off for sure. You had Nick Bostrom on the podcast a few episodes ago,
Yep.
and his book on superintelligence is one of my favorite books. I've read it several times, and
Yep.
in there he mentions the fact that there's going to be a day where the thought of being able to produce AGI is not necessarily going to be a thought, and it's going to be a capability. And I feel like until like this last year or two, we've kind of been passing the ball. Like we've been on the zero, or we've been on the 80, 90 yard line, and we're just passing the ball. But a touchdown is not really feasible, right? We never really thought we'd get there, and now we're at the point where it's like the next play might be a touchdown. We reconsider like what we're doing, right?
Mm.
Everything all the research that's being done in AI is now 1 degree closer, very, very close to enabling AGI, and or maybe not AGI, but very, very capable artificial intelligence systems. And so there's a different level of sobriety, because it's like, well, you might just build something that's pretty damn powerful with this next move you make. So be careful. Because before it was just like, oh, this is a much better image recognition model. Oh, this is a much better sound recognition model. Oh, we can do protein folding now. But now it's like we're very, very close to that touchdown, and it's cause for pause just to say, should we throw the ball or not? And so I like a lot of Nick Bostrom's thinking. I still think we're a ways off from actual true AGI, but it's we're getting closer to demanding the level of sobriety that needs to kind of lock everyone down and say, should we build this thing or not?
Yeah. And any useful technology um, sort of is the intersection of multiple technologies. You couldn't build a smartphone unless you had small processors. You didn't have, really good actual material technology as well. Then it's just so many layers of technology in a smartphone. It's mind-boggling. But so the smartphone, the Apple phone, is the intersection of many technologies, including the internet. So, if you just had a phone, you couldn't call anyone, that'd be completely useless, but it might look nice. So, but
Right.
but interviewing Nick was really interesting because I think what we're seeing too is the intersection of philosophy and science, which actually has just about always been the case, because physicists, for example, are trying to find out, the secrets behind the universe. How did it start? Right. In other words, physicists actually are asking really big damn questions. Where did we come from? Where are we going? And what I find fascinating, but for me with AI is, and for me, it's a bit of an aha moment. It's going, okay, ChatGPT, it can write a damn fine article. Sure, it's losing a bit of soul. It's not good at storytelling. It's not as good as a human writer. And I only have to go and read some, fantastic articles on New York Times from these incredible writers that do these connection of dots and bring together a story that just blows me away. And then the writing is creative. It's storytelling. So for me, when the machine ChatGPT wrote an article for me, I went, wow. Okay, so we publish articles, I write. So I'm going, machine's doing the writing. Why am I here? What's the purpose and meaning of life? And that's what Nick does discuss in basically Deep Utopia, his latest book, and Superintelligence he wrote in 2014. And having a chat with him was almost, I was slightly intimidated because he's got such a big brain, and where it goes is fascinating. He even goes into things like, well, what's man's purpose and meaning? Well, we can artificially create that as well. And one, what? Okay, so that's just a snippet of Nick Bostrom's brain. So I was really privileged to actually interview him. But yeah, for me, as humans now, we actually have to ask some questions before it escapes from us. And we should have asked these questions of other technologies like social media before it escaped from us and started splintering the world and became a force for, to separate us rather than connect us. So, yeah, I'm fascinated by that whole area of, and you've mentioned AGI. I think people need to know what that means because a lot of people don't. So we have generative AI, which is generated out of, lots of data, learning, neuroscience, large language models, but artificial general intelligence, where the intelligence becomes as smart as humans, isn't it?
Yeah, that's one camp of thought. Some say it has to be, well, not just human level intelligence, it's got to be consciousness, and that's what constitutes human level intelligence.
Yeah.
And so then, then there's different definitions of consciousness, right? I mean,
we don't even know what
think
consciousness is. Humans do not know what it is.
Right. I mean, I'm personally not gonna push my nose up at if someone showed me an artificial intelligence that was just as smart of as a dog and was just as conscious as a dog tomorrow, I would not. I'd be pretty freaked out. I'd be excited and freaked out, right? I mean, it's not human level intelligence, so I'm not gonna balk at that. But I mean, that's very impressive, right? Just to even have that pedigree of intelligence and consciousness. So yeah, but for the sake of conversation in most realms, I think AGI, artificial general intelligence, is reflective of human level intelligence or better.
Yeah. It's like, for me, the AI, we just started this journey. This, I look back at, the rise of the personal computer, then I'll see the rise of the phone, I see the rise of social media, I see the internet, the web. What I've found fascinating with ChatGPT is it gave humans, the general, population, it gave AI a friendly, simple user face. And that's what browsers did to the internet back in the 1990s.
That's a great analogy.
So and if you have a look at different technologies, that's what happens. Look at the PC. Back in the 1980s, the PC was given a nice friendly user face when a mouse was brought into the equation and you could click and go. It ended up giving it a nice, easy to use that the general population could use rather than, the geeks, that sit in dark labs and invent things and, have changed the world. I love the phrase, there's a phrase in the Bible called the meek shall inherit the earth. I think the actual real truth now is the geeks will inherit the earth, really. So, but
yeah, going back to Nick Bostrom, he argues in his book Superintelligence that those who help bring AI forth will be saved, To some degree. I mean, I'm using that loosely, but it's like the robots will look back and be like, "Did you help me come about? If so, I'm not going to I'm not going to do bad things to you. Otherwise, you're gone." So it's kind of like a very pessimistic way to look at things, but it's just kind of funny. Yeah, to your point.
But yeah,
And
it's yeah. Sorry, keep going.
oh no, I was going to mention, I was talking with a university student the other day, and she goes, "Well, what do I work on? I mean, AI is just getting so good. Like, I don't, whatever I study at university, it's just going to be able to do better than me. So what do I do?" Right? And you mentioned a few moments ago, well, what role do humans play? And I told the student, I said, you can't have that mentality because if everyone starts thinking that way, there's going to be no validation on artificial intelligence. Nobody's going to check it. Like if you have a subject matter expertise and you go to school and you become very, very good at psychology, right? You can correct ChatGPT when it's wrong or the AI when it's wrong about psychology related questions or psychology related matters. If we all just kind of sit back and just say, well, the AI is going to do it. The AI is smarter than me, then I mean, it's not going to be perfect all the time. It's going to be wrong, but it might always believe it's right.
Hmm.
So if we all sit back and just kind of let it take the front seat, we can paint a very, very bad picture of the world in which we lose total control. So it's important for us to always, I think it's important for humans to still try to have that subject matter expertise because even though AI can do it very well, many things very well, it's going to need to be checked always in the future.
Yeah, and we only have to have a little look at Google adding AI to its search called Google Reviews, right? So,
Yeah.
and I read someone had done some research on some of the results it produced and used it, and shit, it was funny. It was so funny. It's like, medical research. We'll eat a hot rock. That'll fix things, right? So, so is this these checks and balances? And for me, I really see AI as being an assistant to us as humans. We are already hybrid humans. We have our smartphone. We don't even remember phone numbers anymore, right? We want to find something out. We'll just tap into the universe, into the intelligence of the planet via the web. It is already here. We are already hybrid humans. So for me, what I'm really excited about with, generative intelligence is that with large language models, it's tapped into the super intelligence and the super consciousness and brain of the planet of humans. And what I do when I get a result is a result of a collective organization, distillation of the intelligence of the planet right in front of me within that document or whatever question I asked or whatever prompt I do. So for me, I'm going, my God, I actually have the intelligence of the planet at my fingertips right here, right now. And we're going to become more hybrid machine versus inhuman. And what we can do then is use it as an assistant to make us better humans, to free us up to do things that I think make us even more human, such as having more adventures, doing more creative things, create functional beauty, make beautiful architecture. I think but it's got to be done in the right way. And I think this is where philosophy becomes really, really important in terms of why are we here, right? So, yeah. Can I just pause something here?
Sure.
We're back. I had to stop that because we've got some construction going on. Sorry, guys, for all listening in. We have some construction going on at our place, so it's all right. Yeah.
No
So
worries.
where were we? Well, I just got disrupted by a jackhammer.
No worries. Oh yeah, you were I was thinking about the framework that you kind of just positioned a minute ago, and I really like that, right? Like you have all the intelligence at your fingertips, and it's a matter of what you do with it, right? That's a really interesting way to think about it. I mean, part of me thinks that I kind of almost the state of AI right now is almost analogous to me to like the state of gasoline engines, like or automobiles back in like the early 1900s. If you were to show an automobile to Caesar or somebody else from like 200 BC, I mean, they'd probably think that's AI. We would look at that now and be like, that's not AI. That's what are you talking about? But it's a machine that automates something, right? And every level of automation, I feel like becomes the next frontier of AI. And it's just a matter of like computers back in the 80s were extremely intelligent to someone in 1800s, right? Like that would be artificial intelligence. Now we look back and be like, you had a kilobyte of RAM. What are you, that's not, that's nothing, right? So It's just an interesting shift, like the frontier for what AI is and and how we automate more and more and more is kind of, I don't know. There's an interesting dance there. I don't know what to think of it yet, but it's definitely, there's definitely some analogy there.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think looking for analogies of the past and the present to help us make sense of the future, I think is really, really important. Because the thing is, the future, we're all making predictions of where it's going to go. Where, and for me, part of that question is, well, how do I get a sense of where it's going? And so I wrote an article which was about the three pillars of artificial intelligence, and to see where the money, the venture capital money is going. What are the big, research labs like? Uh, Apple spends 20 billion a year on R&D,
I
right?
believe it.
Yeah. The reality is that for me, I wanted to look, where's the money going and who is behind the money? And then you start to get a sense of where it's potentially going. And because I think the challenge for me with artificial intelligence, and both you and I, you're on the technical part, I'm more on the business human side of what AI means and how we can use it, whether it's a business or our personal lives, for the benefit of mankind. And I'm going, okay, so how can we, what is really going on? So for me, standing back and looking at the whole ecosystem gives me more perspective, because the trouble is, it's just like going to Manhattan. You get lost in the canyons and you can't see, New York for the trees, the skyscrapers. So
Right.
it's actually getting above the game and looking down on it as if you're a god. And I sort of have this thing about that we are all gods, really. We don't have to go looking for God. I think that um, what's within us is just magical, at any rate. So, but for me, I just want to get to, I think as humans, we've got to stand back a bit and take a pause and look at it in all its perspective. And um, that's happened to me a few times, and I try to invoke that. For example, social media transformed my life. I started blogging about it, wrote about it. Then I ended up being invited to speak all around the world. And for me, social media connected me to the world and to my tribes. And so I was in Egypt, for example, and I was invited to the World Youth Forum, and there were 10,000 young people, hosted by the president of Egypt. And he hosted a roundtable with 5 people for social media and 5 people against social media. In other words, the pros and cons. And for me, that was an aha moment to actually realize that technology can run both ways and the truth's going to lie somewhere in the middle. So we need to get our heads around how we use AI, for example, now, and get ahead of the game, because social media's, we've lost that gig's out of the bag, right? So trying to control it now is almost impossible. But yeah,
Right.
so for me, trying to get context and having a conversation with you is part of that context. And what I love about what you're doing is that you're going, we're not fully human unless we can smell. And then, okay, let's create a machine. And I'm going, wow, that is fucking great. So
Well, thank you.
yeah, and I just and I'm never, for me, Kordel, I'm just fascinated by human creativity, and I think AI's got a long way to go. I'll be interested in your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I fully agree. I think first off, I really like that way to think about it, right? We can look, social media is more or less uncontainable now, right? We can't really go back. And if we can study that trajectory and how we got to this point,
Mm.
we can try to make sure that we don't get the same way with AI, right? To a point where we can never go back. That's a really insightful way to think about things. Um, for one thing that bothers me about AI, all right, or this current state of AI is these big companies right now are focused on making bigger and more intelligent artificial intelligence models, and everyone's kind of in the shock and awe stage right now because they use ChatGPT and they get a really intelligible result back. They get an essay written for them, they get their emails composed, they get a paper written, whatever. and they get all these answers, and it's very amusing, and we're still kind of in the honeymoon phase,
Yes, we are.
but there's not, and because of this, we're kind of overlooking transparency and explainability. So what if, so we work a lot with healthcare, right? And they're very recalcitrant to using AI because if an AI declares someone, makes a life-changing decision, that's extremely, extremely bad. So we have to kind of follow the mantra that AI cannot be the last link in the chain. We have to give as much evidence as possible to the physician, and then they make the final diagnosis. And we're being held to the level of scrutiny where we have to make our AI explain itself. So when we feed it an X-ray image or something, and it says, "Oh, this person has a probability of lung cancer with X percent," that's not good enough. We have to say, "Well, we think this person has lung cancer with X percent because there's some patterns in the lower left nodule of the lung, and they have this history, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera." So we're making this explainability report that allows AI to explain itself just as a human can. And I think we're going to get to the point where or I hope we get to the point as humans where uh, that's the most important thing, is making sure AI can explain itself, because that will allow us to kind of keep the train from running down the tracks without us, and just put the humanism back into AI. Because right now it's very smart, but if you keep asking why did you do this, it's not good at explaining itself and understanding what's going on inside. And to some degree, humans aren't either, right? Like when we make decisions, being able to thoroughly explain what we do, um, we need to be able to do that better, but we can still do it way better than AI.
Yeah. And this is where I think AI is a human assistant that's by our side that we have control over. For me, I'm just trying to think of how we frame it and how we use it. And it's really fascinating to actually keep exploring that and keep asking the questions, what guardrails do we need? And you just mentioned like putting guardrails in place just for medical. Because the challenge with AI is it's so broad. It touches every part of what it means to be human.
Right.
And you've just added another sense to it. So
Yeah. Yeah. So in order to try to make it more human, we're actually going against the problem, I guess, to some degree. But um, yeah, hopefully interesting dichotomy there. But yeah.
but yeah, no, it's just and Nick Bostrom very much with his dystopian look at it back in his superintelligence book. And what was funny when they reached out to me, I went, "Oh, Nick Bostrom, you sound familiar." I went, "Oh, I did a search on my Kindle. Another word's another part of AI extension of my brain. Kindle search, found book, read it in 2014. So it's like, okay, and this happens all the time now, right? So I've forgotten
Right.
something in Google Docs. Do a search. There it is. Okay, great, fantastic. So humans are beautifully imperfect, but they have some superpowers that is, I find it just mind-boggling, and the creativity, behind humans is just something. And from entrepreneurs to scientists, creativity lies in every corner of being human. Um, but guardrails, I think, are really, really important because we didn't put them in place for social media, and it's now becoming a challenge even to democracy, right? So, and then it's being used and applied to, autocracy, where the government can actually control the people, and different governments have different philosophies. Chinese philosophy is very different to American philosophy. So America's all about individualism. Chinese philosophy is very much about, okay, you work for the good of the state. So that produces a totally different attitude to almost every part of humanity. So,
That's true. Yeah.
so we've got to be very careful that we judge the Chinese and the Chinese judge the Americans, realize where are we coming from as humans? What's your philosophy behind how you live and work? So, anyway, AI. So just to wrap it up, and we're of your time. So, Kordel, where do you think AI is going? Do you think we're going to reach singularity in 2050, according to Ray Kurzweil?
I mean, I don't. I don't know. I struggle with those predictions just because AI surprises me every day, and where it goes. The things I think are possible end up not being possible now, and the things that I thought were 10 years away are happen tomorrow. So, um, I mean, there's definitely that. It's not. It's in the set of all possible outcomes for sure. It can definitely happen, but I'm not sure that we'll get there by 2050. I do think that we need to take a more sobering look at AI. I don't think we're at the point now where we're about to build Terminator the runaway train, but I think to really complement what you're saying about using social media as a smoke signal for what's about to come, we should definitely study that and definitely look at other technologies that we can't go away without right now, that we cannot rid ourselves of right now, to try to put those guardrails in place to make sure that doesn't happen with AI. Because once it does get to the level of AGI, whether it's next year or in 1,000 years, we want to make sure that we have the right framework
Hmm.
of thinking so that we can control it and we're not caught flat-footed. So I hope there's a lot more interest in explainability and making these large models explainable and I guess mirroring humans to that degree. But I also hope that there's a lot more investment in other aspects of AI besides large language models, because there's a whole other series of industries out there that need the talent and attention and funding, to be honest. But uh, tomorrow is going to it will never go like I think it will with AI. So I'll be just as surprised in the news tomorrow as I was today when I read it. So I hope that we can control that course though and paint the future that we want as humans.
Yeah. And I think that crossed my mind as I was listening to you, is I'm going, and what you said was something about, okay, can the AI explain itself? In other words, how did you come to this decision? In fact, maybe that is just one guardrail we need amongst many, is that please explain, as in other words, how did you get here? Tell us what evidence you used to do this. And it actually has to be built into every prompt almost as a little note that you click and going, please explain, tell me the steps, what information you use, what research did you use, to make it, I suppose, to reveal its soul and where it got this from. I don't know what your thoughts on something like that.
No, I fully agree. It's funny because have you ever had the cereal Lucky Charms?
No, I haven't. No.
Okay, well, it's a cereal with a bunch of marshmallows in it. And when I was a little kid, I would eat the cereal. My mother would give it to me, and I would only eat the marshmallows. And she would just always get mad and tell me, "You can't do that. I'm not giving the cereal anymore." And I always say, "Why?" And she said, "Because I'm the mom. That's why." She'd always say that with everything. I'm the mom. That's why. And I was like, I want an explanation. Like, I fully respect your decision, but just explain why, right? And right now, I feel like AI is the same thing. Like, it gives you an answer and you say, well, why? And it says, well, because I'm the AI. That's why. Don't worry about it. And, we need to take the ego out of AI and have it make sure it can give the appropriate responses and explanations for its decisions. Otherwise, you're going to end up with a bunch of frustrated teenagers like I was as humans. And we're just going to, we're going to rebel against the AI mothers because they can't explain their decisions.
I love that analogy. In other words, she's going, trust me, I'm your mum.
Exactly.
Instead of saying, because the sugar's going to kill you, son. Okay, so, or give you
I would have
diabetes.
appreciated that. Yeah, just tell me that.
And when the AI tells us, okay, this is the result, and going, why? Because I'm AI. Well, fuck off, right? You're the machine. Actually, you got to answer to me. Because
Exactly.
I'm still the oracle and the god. I brought you forth, and I can actually take you away as well. So that's our kill switch thing, isn't it? Really. So anyway,
Exactly. That's exactly.
Kordel, it's been absolute pleasure to talk to you, buddy. It's been really fun. We're well over an hour now, and I'm aware that you might need to go and create more sense processes and turn on a robot somewhere. This is one question I always ask my guests. If you had all the money in the world, didn't need to work again, what would you do every day that brings you deep joy?
Honestly,
Yeah,
I
that's
would probably be doing the same thing I'm doing now, is contributing to what I hope is the safe development of artificial general intelligence. I would just be doing it with a lot better of a wardrobe and with a lot more money and probably a lot more progress because I have the money. So
Well,
Probably the same thing I'm doing now.
in fact, you do more of what you're doing now. Almost that's what.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I think for me, and I go back to Joseph Campbell again because he said he was asked the big question. He was raised as a very strict Catholic, and he studied the myths and stories of humanity and religion and culture. And he said, "I don't believe there's any purpose to us as humans except to follow your bliss." And what that means is following your curiosity that calls you, and that is the intersection of both what you're good at, what you love doing, and to make a difference in the world. And for me, it resonates a lot because and following your bliss is not a destination because you never arrive. It's actually, it's following your adventure. What is your call to adventure? And for me, listening to you today is your call to adventure is a combination, an intersection of multiple experiences of your life. And for me, listening to you and hearing your answer, you are indeed following your bliss. And I think we need more people to do that because that's where the magic really happens.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I love that question. That's not something I've actually thought about before, but that's the honest answer. So I love that.
Good. Well, it's a question I ask a lot for myself, and I think I started following my bliss after I turned 50 because then I was just following everyone's path before that. And sometimes it takes something to happen in your life that's not necessarily what you want. My marriage broke up, lost the family home, and
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
well, it's life, right? But be careful what you wish for, because out of that became the best part of my life and continues to be. And I wouldn't be doing this today and having a chat with you unless that happened. So, um, but yeah, but thank you for your honest answer. And Kordel, I'm looking forward to seeing your journey and how it unfolds. And because I think you're right, I think the sense of smell has been ignored too long. We need to be fully human, and you're helping to do that by actually asking the questions of how do we make a machine more human? Because that does raise the big questions, doesn't it?
It is, yeah. There's and I think those questions need to be asked more and more often as these artificial systems get more and more capable. So if we can contribute to a small part of that, then I think I've done my job here. So hopefully that's the case.
Okay, well, thank you for following your bliss, Kordel. It's for me, that is what it means to be fully human. So thank you for leaning into your curiosity, and it must be almost a compulsion now. Do you feel slightly obsessed?
Very obsessed. Yeah, it's definitely obsessive. And I think, yeah, maybe that's the sign you are following your bliss, right? As if you are obsessive, almost possessive over it. So, yeah, thank you so much for the enlightening conversation. I really like the framework that you think about a lot of these things, and I think that the world needs to hear more of the way you're thinking about some of these things because it's going to foreshadow how we put some of these guardrails in place for more ethical and more intelligent and safe AI systems in the future. So thank you.
Thanks, Cordell, for that. That is very much appreciated. And I've just loved this conversation and to have chat with such intelligent, creative people. I feel grateful to have this honor of doing this all the time. So part of what I do, keep doing, is what I'm doing today. So basically having chats with really fun, smart people is great. Thank you.
Of course. I love it. Let's do it again soon.
We will. Look, we'll keep in touch actually on this, and I want to see how this unfolds because it's the full modality of being human. You're actually adding, some more magic to the bucket of AI, really. So it's fantastic.
Terrific. Well, I'll keep you posted, and hopefully next time I'll have some interesting progress to report.
Thank you.